Apparently there is an Epstein list and Trump is going to give it to us.
You should focus on Clinton. You should focus on the president of Harvard, the former president of Harvard. You should focus on some of the hedge fund guys. I'll give you a list. These guys lived with Jeffrey Epstein.
Now, this is yet another change of the story. First, we heard that the Epstein list was covered up by the Dems. Then we heard there is no list. Then we heard the list was made up by Democrats. Now we're hearing that there is a list.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it.
We need to release the Epstein list.
It's sitting on my desk right now.
The DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list.
No incriminating client list.
Made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama. Focus on Clinton, the president of Harvard. I'll give you a list.
This all comes after shocking revelations about new implications of our most powerful leaders, both former and current presidents. But now, given the fact this story won't go away, Trump is zeroing in on his political enemies and saying they're the ones everyone should be focusing on.
They should focus on the fact that Larry Summers from Harvard, that Bill Clinton, who you know very well, and lots of other friends, really close friends of Jeffrey Summers, should be spoken about. Because, Jeffrey Epstein should be spoken about. And they should speak about them, because they don't talk about them. They talk about me. I have nothing to do with the guy.
Now, the reason we haven't been speaking about these people is because, of course, the DOJ covered everything up, not giving any names. And, of course, people were extremely suspicious of this sudden change. But we want to talk about everyone. Let's be clear. No matter who they are, left or right, we want them all to go down. If they were on the island, if they are in the files, we want it all to come out. That's been everyone's stance from the beginning. And it seems like Trump is finally buckling on the idea that he can just ignore the problem, that he can just pretend it doesn't exist. And now it looks like he's shifting to deflecting to some of the other people who are also seemingly implicated.
Hedge fund guys, they're all over the place. You ought to be speaking about Bill Clinton, who went to the island 28 times. I never went to the island.
Now, if true, that's a shocking amount of times. We don't know if Trump has special briefings that we don't have access to right now. Previously, Clinton denied going to the island. There are some people who have said, oh, maybe he went once or twice, but 28 times. I've never heard that number before. If true, I hope that comes out. I hope we get verification of that. Of course, it wasn't just on the island where these bad things happened. And the other surprising twist in this, where the narrative is sort of changing, is that Trump is softening his stance on this letter that he supposedly wrote. Initially, he said, it doesn't exist. I never could have written it. Now he's saying, oh, it could exist, but if it does, someone else wrote it.
I don't know what they're talking about. Now, somebody could have written a letter and used my name, but that's happened a lot. All you have to do is take a look at the dossier, the fake dossier.
So seemingly they're laying the groundwork for this birthday book to finally be released to the public, as we've all wanted. Trump is saying, look, maybe it does have my name on it, but I didn't personally write the note. Now, whether you believe that is totally up to you, but this is such a shocking change in stance from how they've been treating the Epstein files. Previously, we were literally told, look, there's nothing we can charge third parties with. There's no evidence we have on anyone. Now, the Trump administration is meeting privately with Ghislaine Maxwell. Supposedly, there's 100 new people she has mentioned, and Trump is mentioning evidence that he says they have, or some knowledge he says he has, of Clinton being on Jeffrey Epstein's island 28 times, which, if true, is like so incredibly damning. And these people should be locked up. The problem is, of course, it cuts both ways. If you're going to implicate one person, you have to go after everyone. Now, Trump was asked if he was ever briefed on his name being in the Epstein files. Of course, it was reported by the Wall Street Journal that he was told, and that's when he started acting very weird about the Epstein files, saying it was all a hoax. He once again denies it, though, saying he wasn't.
Mr. President, did you brief on your name appearing in the Epstein files ever?
No, I was never briefed. No.
Now, we have really good reporting on the fact that this seems like a blatant lie. The White House barely even denied it, and the DOJ didn't deny it. So this seems to be just a blatant cover-up, as Trump appears to be deflecting onto other people, which, again, we should focus on those people as well, but we can do both at the same time. We should be talking about all of these people. Now, in light of recent talks about Ghislaine Maxwell getting pardoned, stuff like that, Trump has now said it's not the time to talk about pardons yet, although once again, he doesn't rule it out. And then he says that if you're going to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, if you're going to talk about Epstein, talk about Clinton, don't talk about Trump.
A lot of people are asking me about pardons. Obviously, this is no time to be talking about pardons. But a lot of people have asked about pardon. This is just not a time to be talking about pardons. Todd will come back with whatever he's got. You're making a very big thing over something that's not a big thing. You should be talking about, if you're going to talk about that, talk about Clinton, talk about the former president of Harvard, talk about all of his friends, talk about the hedge fund guys that were with him all the time. Don't talk about Trump.
Well, how about we talk about all of you guys? Because while Trump tries to separate himself and say, oh, you can't talk about me, you got to talk about all these other guys, it just seems like we should be talking about everyone who appears in the Epstein files. And now, as the White House softens its approach on the complete denial and shutting up of the Epstein files, now the goal is just to distance the president from any liability, which is why Ghislaine Maxwell's private meeting with him is so concerning. Today, the president was also asked about whether he was part of the decision for the House Republicans not to release the Epstein files. He says this is just conspiracy theories.
Did you ask House Republican leaders to not vote on the resolution about releasing the files?
I was never involved in that. I'm focused on making deals. I'm not focused on conspiracy theories that you are.
Once again, this is kind of a funny idea, being that this administration and the surrogates are part of the people who pushed this whole thing from the very beginning. So to call it a conspiracy theory now, to be making fun of people who are asking basic questions about that, is just bizarre and strange again. But I do think it's worth noting this radical shift in the approach of talking about the Epstein files. Remember, it was that it's a cover-up, then it was the list doesn't exist. Now they're saying the list does exist and they will produce it. So what names actually they're gonna produce? I think it's anyone's guess. I hope they produce all of them. I'm doubtful. I think there will be some omissions, but it's a credit to all the people who won't stop talking about this that at least there is a change in the approach, and it looks like they're gonna have to release some of the files.